Welcome to Corks and Conversation with David Ellis.
Oh, I am so excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Mr. Justice Ellis has written 18 books, eight of which he co-authored with James Patterson. We'll get into that as well. And he does all of this while being a judge during the day. So pretty impressive. I can't wait to talk to him.
Thank you guys for
I
having
know,
me.
I agree. I can't.
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
yeah. I, I can't wait to ask you all the questions. But first, Kathy's going to talk a little bit about you and give everybody your CV, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So over the last 2 decades, New York Times bestselling and award-winning author David Ellis has brought his experience as an attorney and justice of the Illinois Appellate Court to his bold and wildly sharp legal thrillers. Beloved by readers and critics alike, his debut novel, Line of Vision, won the Edgar Award for First Best Novel, which is a big deal, by the way. And then his sixth
Mhm.
book, The Hidden Man, was a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize. His latest book, which I have here, and I bet Christie does, and I bet the Justice does as well, called Look Closer. No, he doesn't. Has come out to rave reviews. And here, I'm going to read one for you from one of my favorite authors, Scott Turow, who is the author of Presumed Innocent and The Last Trial. He said David Ellis's Look Closer is a daring, brilliant thriller full of characters you both love and hate, and more unexpected turns than a mountain road at night without your headlights. Tremendous fun. And we could not agree more. So, David, welcome. It's great to have you.
Yes, loved it.
Christie, Cathi, thank you for having me. It has been so much fun getting back into the writing of my own books, my solo books, and happy to talk about that. But you know, it came out a couple months ago, and I've been kind of trying to, just enjoy the ride because it's a slightly different book for me, not a huge departure, but slightly different focus for me, and it's been so fun to see the reaction. And I never get tired of talking about it.
Oh.
Especially if we're going to involve wine. But I
Okay.
talk about it without wine
Yes,
too.
yes.
It's been a real whirlwind, and I always say to people, it doesn't get old. I mean, this is my 20th book or something, but it doesn't matter how many I've done. I still feel like just a little kid every time I start over.
That is
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to
wonderful to
hear.
hear. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, let's
yes.
get into the wine,
And of
Christie.
course, we are wine here.
We are.
Well, actually, David suggested the Society of Smugglers
That's a great
Cabernet
title.
Sauvignon,
I did. I
which
wish
is a
that
great name.
It's a great, I know, it's a really cool name. It's such a black cover. It's kind of hard to see. Should I go like this?
Yes, you should.
Society of Smugglers. So I have to give all credit to Susan, my wife, because I'm the guy, if you've seen Sideways, and I'm sure you have, I'm the other
Uh-huh.
guy who says that every wine tastes pretty good. I'm not a huge
Yeah.
wine guy, but every time my wife cajoles me to try something with her, I always enjoy it. And I've had a sip of this one, and it's really great. And by the way, I'll
Well,
also
you
say
have to
I've
tell
got my
Susan, by
Peter
the way.
Ginsburg,
Oh, yeah, look at the glass. Go ahead, say that again.
Yeah.
my Ruth Bader Ginsburg glass. She's our hero in my house, in the Ellis house.
Ours too.
Yes, for sure. Ours
Ours
too.
too.
And
Christy, I'm lucky.
I was going to say, Kathy and I are drinking slightly different Cabernets because Susan has very good taste. It was out of our $20 price range, and also it was all sold
Okay.
out. So I was like, oh, wow. So we said, he
So she
can
does
enjoy
have good taste.
because he deserved it, and we'll have our cheaper cabs, but we'll be just as happy because
Cheers
we're
to you. Cheers to the book.
Cheers. So
Yeah.
here's
Like-
my review of this. Let me give you my short review of this wine.
okay.
Presents with a modest bouquet. It has a finish that is busy without being precocious. I don't know what any of that means. I've stole that from various sites, but I thought I would try to sound like I'm an expert in wine. I really just think it tastes
Perfect.
pretty good.
What is a precocious wine is what I want to know. I want to know what a precocious wine is.
You know what? I think
I
precocious
know.
wine is when you like bad wine, like you go to a place that maybe doesn't, when you live in the Midwest, you can travel to places where they will give you wine. It will never be able to compete with, California,
No.
Right.
but it's good. And sometimes they try a little too hard and you can kind of taste that.
There you go.
The best I can say.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So now we're ready for some questions. First, I
Yes.
want to tell everybody a little bit about, because we did love it. It follows the couple Simon and Vicky, who are just seemingly a normal Chicago couple. But when a body of a beautiful socialite is found hanging in a mansion in a nearby suburb, Simon and Vicky's secrets begin to unravel. There's a secret whirlwind affair, a $20 million trust fund about to come due, which I wouldn't mind myself, a decades-long grudge and obsession with revenge. These are just a few of the lies that make up this complex web of this book, and it has devastating consequences. And we find that both Vicky and Simon are pretty much liars, but we just don't know who's conning who. So it literally, I was like trying to figure it out, could not. All the way till the end, almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of deception in the book. That's a really good description, Christy. I really struggle to describe this book. And, when I read the reviews on, Goodreads or Amazon, or even the reviews from the professionals, they'll often say, it's hard to describe this book without getting something, wrong, because everything you think, it ends up not being true. So it's better to go in blind. And that's not much of a marketing pitch if you're trying to sell this book to people. Go in blind, But the truth is it's very hard to give any kind of a summary without something that you're saying ending up not being true. So I struggle. I mean, that was my goal. My goal was to kind of shift the earth on you every 30 or 40 pages, all the way till the end, and with hopefully a surprise you didn't see at the end.
You did it. You met your goal. Now, how did you, so you say that was your goal. Is that what you intended when you went in? You're like, I'm just going to write the craziest, zigzaggiest thing I can find? Or did you have a big picture and say, what's your process?
Yeah,
how did you figure this one out?
It's a great question. This is a different process for this book than I've done in the past. This is much like the process I did for my first book, Line of Vision, which was the one that won the Edgar. And when I had no time deadline on me, when I was writing Line of Vision, nobody knew who I was. I was a lawyer. Nobody even knew I was writing a book, much less was anyone waiting for it to come. And I had walked away this time, from being a solo writer for a few years. And so I started up during COVID writing this book with a character, Simon. Simon fascinated me, and he'd been living in my head. So I said, I'm going to build a story around Simon. But then I also made the decision, which I've never really made before, maybe because it was COVID and it was so damn depressing, that I wanted a really fun book.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted, one of my goals was this will be fun. And I thought, okay, well, what's fun for me? What do I like to read and what do I like to watch? And what I like to watch on the streaming shows is something where every episode you completely switch up something that I had no idea was going to happen. Not just a surprise ending, but surprises all throughout. And I thought, I'm going to make a point of doing that because I think that's what people want right now. And that's what I would want to read. I mean, ultimately, I try to write what I would want to read. So yeah, and it was, it took a lot of time, and it took me quite a while to write it, well over a year. But, a lot of trial and error. A book like this, you change your mind, you go back, you tinker with things. I know I'm playing a game with you guys, right? I'm playing a game with a fun game, a willingly entered into game with the reader. The reader's trying to figure out what I'm doing, and I'm trying to fool them. And so the advantage I have is I get to write this however I want, in whatever order I want. I get to tweak it as much as I need to. So the result is just the reader reads it in the order in which I give it to them, but I've done a lot of tinkering along the way to try to get as many advantages as I can in the game, right? Because ultimately it's fun I think it's fun for the reader if I can fool you in a fair way. So
the ending,
and that's a good way to describe it, was fun.
Yeah. And the ending was it was
Don't
masterful.
tell me.
I'm not going to give it away, I promise. But, you know, I don't know, Christy, how you feel or how you feel, David, but as a writer, I, I sometimes I have to try to shut that part of my brain off when I'm reading your book, because I was like, how did he do this? Like, how did it, how did the plotting
Mhm.
work? And what did he know? Because it's so fun just as a reader to just turn the pages and enjoy that surprise.
It's really
But
kind of hard to turn the
Yeah.
thing off though. And if you guys are
It is.
writers, I
yeah,
mean, when I read, like I think Cathi, you were the one who said Scott Turow. No, was it you, Chrissy? Scott Turow is one of your favorites. He's
Kathy, yeah, she
Yeah.
said that.
Kathy.
I like him too, but
I remember
Yeah,
one.
right. He
I
is
had
my
read
absolute
one L.
favorite. Yeah, I think the guy's amazing. He's also happens to be a very nice man, very nice man. I've called on him for advice in the past, including when I was getting started. But
Wow.
like when I read a Scott Turow novel, I drink it in, but I also sit there and step back as a craftsman, as a fellow writer, saying, wow, he did that so effortlessly, or at least he made it seem effortless. Because when you're really good at something, you make it seem effortless, even though, of course, it's anything but effortless, right? And it's hard for me watching a show or reading a book to not have that little writer's part of my brain saying, like, oh, that was a clever idea. That was a good call by the author. Or I wouldn't have done that if I were the author. I might have saved this one. You're saying you're able to sometimes just let that part go and just enjoy the ride?
I try to, and it's kind of like it's like reverse monkey mind. You know how when you try to calm yourself down, your brain's all. I every time I recognize that when I'm reading, because I literally was trying to picture your office while while we were plotting this, because I was like, how did he do that? Like,
I know, because it is. It's like, yeah, okay,
yeah. But
and then plus you're all trying to get ideas too. Like, oh wow, that was great how that happened. I mean, I don't know. It is hard to turn it off, but you still enjoy it.
It's extremely hard for me.
You still I still really enjoy it because because if it's a good book, then it doesn't matter that you can't turn it off. In my opinion, you still enjoy it. If it's not, then you're like the whole time, like you're saying, going, oh man, that is not what I would have done, or no, they shouldn't have done that. Ever, So it's like the same with movies and stuff, I'm sure.
I always say with any kind of good art, the artist is succeeding if you kind of get lost in it, and I feel that way when I'm reading a book. If somebody is trying too hard in maybe their descriptions, they're trying to be too flowery. That's like the needle coming off the turntable, to use an old person's expression. Young people are like, what's a turntable?
What?
But, the screech, I'm like, it takes me out of the zone, and it makes me think, oh, that author is trying to impress me right now, and I'm really annoyed by it. So that's a fail, right? That means I'm not lost. But when they do it really well, Turow is, to me, a perfect example of someone who does it really well. I forget that I'm reading a story that someone sat there with the computer and same with a movie, rather than sit there and dissect things, I just get lost in it. Sorry, my dog is sniffing my bottle of wine.
That's funny. I chose my wine today because my dog is also under my desk. You guys, I picked Rough Day with this little dog on it. Isn't that funny?
I love that.
So, one of the things that Turow said in his review is one of the things I wanted to ask you about. He mentioned that you love and hate your characters. And I wanted to ask you about writing unlikable characters. I mean, it's not that they were completely
you end up liking them, but at the same time you're like, a lot of the time you're not liking them, so I don't know.
So how did you think about that you really had unlikable people?
I think about that all the time. What I used to tell people about characters, like people who want to become writers, I would always say, it would be great if your character, if the reader likes your character, but they at least have to respect your character. If they don't even respect your character, then they're not going to want to spend time with them. Some people are really obsessed with having likable characters. I'm really obsessed with, I don't know how else to say it, but just being realistic. I mean, who really is a perfect person? I mean, the people that we know that are the sweetest people have plenty of dark thoughts in their head and dark motivations. Some act on them and some don't. Granted, my characters are fairly dark, but I like to show the flaws. I think that makes them real. And there are some people who don't want that. There are, especially if you're reading a beach read, which I always say, if people want to read this as a beach read, go ahead. I think it's maybe could be read more deeply than that, but you could also just read it for the fun. And maybe the characters are a little too dark for that fun for some people. That doesn't seem to be the reaction I'm getting, but I can't write those perfect characters. That doesn't interest me. And if I'm not interested, then the reader's not going to be interested. It's infectious when you're interested in what you're doing, and so I firmly believe that. At least I have to love what I'm writing so that it will come off the page that way to others. So, I made a very conscious decision that these people would have plenty of flaws and that they needed to ultimately for the plot to work. I will say this, I downscaled Simon a little bit. My first draft, he was a little less likable, I would say. Like somebody said to me, who I know lives in my town, and she grew up on the south side of Chicago, if that makes a difference. And she said, I didn't like Simon for most of the book. And I said, why? And she said, because what grown man writes a journal? And I thought, but then you got to the end, right? And she said, yeah. And so now he was okay. So, I mean, you try not to give anything away, but that's the problem. I mean, if I made him unlikable for 80% of the book, then did I do something wrong? I mean, it's a choice I made. There, as you guys well know, there's no right or wrong anyways. But that's who I am. I mean, that's what I'm always going to do. I'm never going to write someone who everyone just loves and roots for. There's going to be a split verdict.
Well, I think something you said when you said about like reading deeper, I think it's also because some people are not they don't go quite as deep into their characters. So they just touch that surface. Oh, they're evil, or oh, they're whatever, and you never really see that they could have. And so that's how we can even like the bad guys,
I think of the Jack Reacher character. So I've known Lee Child since we kind of broke into the business together with the same editor. One of us has been a little more successful than the other, but and I love the guy. I love him, and he created this brilliant character. He said, I wanted to create a character that men admired and women wanted, and he did. Having said that, and I love his books. I haven't read the new ones that his brother has started doing. I hear they're very good. I will read them, but I could not write that character. That character would not work for me because that character, Jack Reacher, has virtually no flaws. He's fun to spend time with, but those aren't my kind of books. I mean, those aren't the books I write. I'll read them, but I would not do that well, and I wouldn't enjoy it. I like dark, creepy characters. I like that in the other books I read when I'm watching a show. I love it when I've got these characters that are, have a lot of, darkness to them, a lot of complexity to them. So, and I'm sure Lee would, and I'm not criticizing his books at all. I love his books actually. And I'm really happy for the success, but that's a whole different way of approaching it. And maybe his is a more commercially successful one, but this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do. So, Cathi, do you think it's time for the question in the bottle? Okay. I'm going to put my glasses on for this.
Yes.
Okay. Oh. So this would be the question that you would have when you get to the bottom of the bottle.
Okay.
And so, you don't have to necessarily answer. We can think of another one, but they're usually fun. Oh, okay. All right. So which one of the 7 dwarves are you most like?
Grumpy. I'm the most like.
Really?
Yeah, I can be very. My family would say grumpy. That would be the answer. I get moody, and I get particularly moody when I did not have a good writing day. So I write. I'm a judge during the day. And if you didn't know that, by the way, my title is here on the corner of my screen. I forgot to take it off I'm sorry.
Justice David Ellis.
This is the Zoom that I use
That's
for my
okay.
court oral arguments. And I guess if I really tried, I could change this, but I don't. I just leave it. So it says Justice David Ellis, whatever.
I think
But
that's
you know,
just fine.
right. So first thing in the morning, I get up about 3:30 in the morning and I write books till about 7. And if I've had a bad writing experience, I'll be moody and my wife will notice it, that how I'm acting, and she'll say, "Bad writing day, Dave." Or if I'm kind of giddy and happy while I'm getting lunches together in the morning for the kids, she'll be like, "I take it you had a good writing day." It really affects my mood. It's kind of
Oh my gosh. I'm wondering what the lawyers in your courtroom are wondering when you come in.
right.
They're like, uh-oh, it was a bad writing day.
I hope the judge had a good writing day before he sentences me. No, I don't sentence people. I'm an appeals court judge. So
Is he
I
happy
review
or
all the
grumpy
decisions.
today? Which of the dwarfs?
That's awesome. How about you, Christy? What would you be described as? I'm curious.
Oh, I can be any time of the day. I could be a different one. There isn't one like split personality. I would say I'm pretty happy most of the time, but other people around me might think I'm pretty grumpy. And then when I have an allergy attack, I'm sneezy. And
Yeah.
when I'm up reading David's book all night, then I'm sleepy. So we got it. I'm just not Doc, and I'm hopefully not dopey.
All right, your turn, Kathy. Which one are you?
I guarantee you it would depend who you'd ask. And I don't even want to know some of the answers. I was just thinking my employees versus my family. I'm gonna say I aspire to be happy, but I'm right now sneezy since I'm having a little bit of an attack here with my allergies.
Oh, God.
Okay, so you mentioned 3:30 in the morning, and that warms my heart because I'm a 4 o'clock girl as well.
Yeah, she gets
Yeah.
up that early too. I'm an early riser, but I confess I'm not that early. So.
Oh, I love the early morning. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
And
It's like vacation every morning when I get up. I just have to actually get up. I sometimes, hit the snooze a few times and don't get up. But when I can do it, which is most of the time, it's great. I mean, once your eyes are open and you're actually sitting up, you're like, I've got several hours to go play,
I know.
It's
And don't you feel like
quiet.
you just got like a leg on the day? Like
What
you're
time
like,
do you go to bed?
yeah.
I mean, my kids are 10, 12, and 15. So I'm at that age. Like my
Wow.
15-year-old is up to, she's a sophomore in high school, just starting. So she goes to bed way after me. I try to stay up long enough to at least put my kids to bed. 10:30, maybe 11,
Oh, wow.
10. Yeah, I don't.
Kathy's like,
That's why
yeah,
No,
I'm like 10, but I go all the way till 6.
Oh, I'm
you know?
9. I'm like 9:30. I mean, it's not. I don't even try anything after 8 o'clock at night. Like I'm just useless.
Yeah, I know it gets hard after
Yeah.
dinner. I really start to hit fade. I really do.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your writing history that led you up to Look Closer. So you have written double-digit books now, right? You've
Yeah.
written your own novels. You write with James Patterson,
Yeah.
and you are an attorney appointed to the bench. So you have a demanding career. Obviously, you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I am wondering what advice you would give to other writers who are balancing multiple careers.
You have to make writing a priority, which you can only do if you really want to do it. So you have to really want it, which I always did. Once I made the decision when I was like a third-year lawyer that I wanted to write a book, I committed to it, and I wrote sometimes no more than an hour a night. In fact, most of the time I was at a big downtown Chicago law firm billing all those hours. But I would always say at least 1 hour a night, at least one, maybe two if I were lucky, just to squeeze it in. You have to make it a priority. You can't just say, well, I'll write when I get it, when I have a chance. And you can't be afraid of having writer's block. You can't be afraid of writing bad stuff. Anything that you write that is bad is a prelude to getting better. It's just like lifting weights and you can only, curl 20 pounds with your biceps, but the more you curl those 20 pounds, The easier a few years later, you're going to be curling 40 pounds. It's all those failures are not as good moments that lead that build the muscles for the better moments. So don't be afraid to write badly. I wrote badly. I wrote horribly my first book. The beginning of Line of Vision, which again, won the Edgar ultimately, but the beginning of Line of Vision was awful. But I kept at it and I said, this isn't good enough, but keep going. And then I rewrote it and I rewrote it. I rewrote it 4 or 5 times. I'm saying from start to finish. I started with the third person past tense. It ended up being first person present tense. I had multiple points of view. I changed it to one point of view. I just kept doing it. I never stopped. Persistence is the most important goal that if you want to be a published author. There's nothing that comes close to persistence. And if there's one thing I'm proudest of, it's that first book that I saw it all the way through. I took 3 years at least to write it, having no training as a writer. And then I took 18 months to find an agent, but I kept sending letters to the agents because sometimes I'd send a different letter to the same agent again. Because back then they would just take a cover letter from you. That was all, in the late 90s, you reached out to literary agents, not by email because there was no email. You mailed them a cover letter and you could have written the best book since War and Peace, right? You could have the next To Kill a Mockingbird on your desk, but they just want to read the 1-page description. And if that 1 page is no good, they'll never even look at the book. So I had to fight through all that and check the mailbox every day and have disappointment after disappointment, but I kept going. I rewrote my cover letter. And, the rest is history. It finally worked out for me, but I just would not take no for an answer. And those are the people who are going to make it.
Wow. Persistence.
Yeah. So if you like Scott Turow has a line in one of his books called Pleading Guilty. I literally know his books well enough that I can quote from them. All of life is will.
Wow.
It's a great line. And that's exactly what I think about life.
It is not the sexiest
I'm inspired
answer.
right now. I'm sorry, I gotta go. Gotta go right now.
Right.
See you later.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
As I drink my way.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a little drink
wow.
too. Is that
So we mentioned James Patterson in there. Like, how did you end up writing with him?
Well, Jim was struggling, and I thought I'd throw him a bone. Make him a little more popular. The poor guy.
What a
He
guy!
couldn't get anyone to read his
You're
book.
a mensch.
not selling books? Just not
Right,
good.
the poor guy. No, so well, I keep mentioning my first book, Line of Vision, but when I wrote Line of Vision, I was a nobody. And so what you do when you're a nobody, and actually I still do it today, you send it out to big time authors to see if they'll give you a blurb. So we sent it to a bunch of them, one of whom was James Patterson, who even back then in like the late 90s was one of the kingpins, right? He was one of the biggest. And he loved Line of Vision. He flipped over it and he wrote a really nice blurb. And back then there were 4 big bookstores in Manhattan alone. There were 4 brick and mortar mystery bookstores dedicated just to mysteries. Can you imagine that in today's world? And so I went to all those.
Oh man.
Yeah, right. And so one of the things I did, my publisher is Penguins, they're downtown, they're in Manhattan, is they said, we're going to send you to the 4 big mystery bookstores and sign copies. And every one I went to, they'll say, oh, who was just here? Jim Patterson was just here. He was saying how much he loves your book. But that's the way Jim is. If he loves something, he won't stop talking about it.
Oh my God.
All right. So fast forward to the year about 2005. And I've been writing for 6 or 8 years. I've just changed literary agents. And my new literary agent used to be a publisher. He was the publisher of Warner Books, which is the parent company that publishes Jim, which is Little Brown. So Jim, obviously, if you're the publisher of James Patterson, you know James Patterson pretty well and you're friends with him. You'd be an idiot not to be friends with him because he's your biggest guy. So they were buddies and they would go to lunch a few times a year. And so when Larry, my new agent, was just breaking into the new job, he had lunch with Jim and they talked about, oh, how's the literary agent business? Who are your clients? He mentions my name. Jim says, I know Dave Ellis. He wrote Line of Vision. And he starts talking about it. And this is like, 6 years after the book came out. But that's Jim. He's got a crap for stuff he likes. Next thing I know, Larry's calling me. He says, do you want to how James Patterson has these co-authors he's starting to do? And I said, yeah, of course I know. He said, would you like to be one? And I would imagine what you would say is my first reaction ought to be, hell yes, I want to. Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
But I am my mother's son, and my first reaction was hesitation, because I didn't want to screw it up.
Oh,
And I thought, can I do this? I
wow.
don't really write the same kinds of books. I mean, maybe in a general sense, kind of commercial fiction, suspense, but our styles are very different. And I said, Larry, I don't know if I'm the guy for this. I mean, it sounds awesome, but I'm not sure I'm the guy. So he said two things for me. First of all, he said, don't be an idiot, which was good advice.
Probably good advice.
Right. The second was call him. He said, just call Jim and talk to him, and you'll see. He's a great guy. So I called Jim. I'm all nervous, right? I'm calling James Patterson, right? The James Patterson. And he's like the most laid back guy ever. Right? He's so cool and chill. And so I said, Jim, look, I'm super flattered you'd consider me. But here's the thing. I don't know that I know how to write a James Patterson book. And I don't want to, sign up for this and then screw it up or something. And he said, listen, I don't want you to write a James Patterson book. I want you to write a James Patterson, David Ellis book. This is a combination of our skill sets.
Wow.
I picked you because I know your skill set. I like it. I think it's a good blend. I've got other co-authors who are going to write differently than you, and that's another fresh book. So I can produce multiple books at a time that are fresh and different. And I thought, that is such a cool answer, right? Like, how can I say no to that, right? So, and the rest has been history. I mean, the guy, I guess technically you'd say he's my boss. I mean, certainly in the hierarchy, he's above me, but he never acts like that,
Wow.
I mean, it's a total collaboration. It's always about, what's the best thing for the book, not whose idea was it. So I'll tell you briefly how it works. I don't want to filibuster, but everybody sees
No,
it.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first question I get, no matter what. I could be at like a judicial conference talking about opinion writing, because I do that a lot. And then I'll say, any questions? And the first question,
James
what's
Patterson.
James Patterson like? Is he a nice guy? I'm like, oh, God.
But we
So-
do talk to a lot of co-authors or people who have co-authored together. And
Yeah.
we're constantly fascinated by the process, because
Yeah.
there's as many processes to co-authoring as there are to how people write a book. So I can see why everyone's interested.
No, you're absolutely, there's so many different ways to write a book. You can outline, you can go by the seat of your pants, you can do some hybrid. So with Jim, it begins with an outline that he creates. And he thinks of every chapter as a scene. He kind of thinks of it like a book, like a movie, I'm sorry, like every scene. But he will actually title them chapter 1, chapter 2. And for each chapter, he'll have a few lines of what he wants in this chapter. And there will be some factual narrative. I want this event is going to happen, but he'll also say, maybe, I want this scene to be really this. I want this to be a heartbreaking scene. I want this to be really tender, really scary. We're going to need some research here to make it really authentic. He'll write little kind of crib notes. So that's kind of the director's direction to begin the book. And it'll be chapter 1 through like 100, right? Like, because that's he has these short chapters.
Wow.
About 100 chapters in a book usually. And so then he'll show it to me and say, what do you think? And if I have changes, I'll say it and we'll talk about it. And then we begin the process of writing. I will write about 4 or 5 chapters at a time and send it to him. And he will read it much like a director would watch me act out a scene. And he might say, great, awesome, this is just what I wanted, keep going. Or he might say, okay, Dave, let's talk about this. Chapter 2, I think maybe we lost the thread here. I think the pace needs to pick up. I'm losing the voice. This part, I wasn't doing it for me, or can we tighten up the writing here? Or, I always know I'm in trouble when he begins by saying,
there's no more tension here.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a very common one. That's one of the most common ones, is I need more tension, because that's what these books are all about. I always know I'm in trouble when he says, this was really well written. If he begins his sentence that way, it ends with, but, enough. Enough about the law. I know you're a lawyer. We get it. We know you have a lot to say about the law, but let's not lose the pace. Let's not lose, he, and it kind of proceeds that way. He knows that I'm sure he knows by now the way my mind works. So I will have ideas midway through the book, and I might change it. One of the books we did together, midway through the book, I called him and I said, look, I have a completely different idea for this. What do you think? And his reaction, which knowing him as well as I do now is not surprising, was, if it's cool, if it works, awesome. I don't care.
Because it's all about the book. What's good for the book.
All about the book. This is going to be awesome. Fine. He was actually skeptical of that. He said, yeah, I'm not so sure it's going to work, but you know what? Give it a shot. If it's no good, go back to the outline. But if it's good, hey, cool. Let's keep going. And I've done that a few times with him, where I've made one in particular, I made a lot of changes to, but again, still sending him just a little bit at a time. I always say, you're keeping me on a leash. He would not use that metaphor. He doesn't. It's really a true collaboration. When you guys are writing,
it's like a director. It sounds like a director of a movie.
It very much is, and he reserves the right to jump in and be the actor too. But usually we're on enough of the same wavelength where I can get what he wants. And sometimes it'll take me 3 tries to do it. But he will, he has definitely taught me that it's all about the reader. He always says, we're not here to win awards. He won the Edgar for best first novel too, actually, way back when he started. But he said, I don't care about awards. I've made a promise to the reader. And they're expecting something from me. And yeah, my different co-authors will do different stuff. J.D. Barker will do Supernatural, and Jim Bourne will do the Michael Bennett series. I do some different stuff. He said, but they're all at their core going to be the same, very tight chapters, 1,200 words or less, with some big emotion in each scene. Wow. He's always really big on don't waste a scene, don't waste chapters. And I know that sounds totally obvious, right? You say that, and yeah, no kidding. But it really is important, because I've caught myself sometimes. I will have a couple of big plot points, and I might call those islands, but I need some stepping stones in between those islands, and maybe those chapters are not the most exciting. And Jim would say, no, make them exciting too. Like, find a way to make them. Don't have any scenes that are lame. And so I think about that. It took me a long time to really kind of have that sink in, but I think about like my favorite movies, right? And we all have our favorites, not the Academy Award winners. Maybe they won Academy Awards, but that's not why you love them. Like, they're just your personal favorite movies. If you were, dying tomorrow and you could watch one movie, what would it be? And I've got my list. And when I think of those movies, there is no scene in those movies that I don't enjoy. I can pick it up in the middle and say, oh, this is a cool scene. Oh, and the next scene's really cool too. They don't waste anything.
Wow.
That's what he tries to do with every book. And that's what I try to do.
Wow.
It sounds elementary, right? But it's actually pretty hard.
But it's about,
I love this.
Yeah, it reminds me of your answer about advice for other writers is persistence. Like, it's so obvious, but it's really hard to do. Too. Interesting.
Yeah. Don't waste. What's that line that Elroy Leonard had? Something like, they said, what's the secret to good writing? And he says, I cut out the parts that people don't want to read.
Right.
Also sounds easy, not so easy always.
No, I can't. I'm amazed. I love it. I love this conversation. It's been so fun.
Yes.
Before we go, Christy has one more question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we like to ask this of all the authors. So, which of your characters would you like to share a meal with, and what would it be?
What would the meal be? I would like to I would like to share a meal with Vicky.
Oh. Vicky
is my personal favorite character in the book. She is, I don't want to say too much, kind of the ultimate bad girl. I have been a very law-abiding and seemingly normal human being my whole life, and I married a very sweet and kind Minnesota girl, and I would probably never have dated somebody like Vicky, but I might have secretly wanted to.
So be your one chance.
Yeah, I mean, she's sexy, she's devious, she's underappreciated, which I always love in a
Mhm.
female character, because women are so undervalued in so many different ways in this world. And so both of my main female characters in this book are undervalued. The police officer,
Mhm.
and she's a
Mm.
cop in a small town that's never had a murder before. She's underestimated, but she's pretty damn smart.
Yeah.
She's smarter
She's
than
pretty
anybody else.
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Which was really fun for me to do. She would be my number two. The two women would be my two favorites, but Vicky in a landslide, she is such a complicated person. I have no idea what we would eat, and I probably would lose my appetite. I'd probably be so consumed with just talking to her. Probably we'd drink. Okay. I'll
There
tell
you
what I
go.
would
Okay, there you
drink. I
go.
would
Drink your
martinis.
dinner.
I would drink martinis, and I don't, or of
And
course,
bar
my
nuts,
wine.
right?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so when our listeners want to find more information about you and your books, where should they go?
Oh, thanks. My website is my name, davidellis.com. Author David Ellis or David Ellis author will get you to my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. I really don't, I really have gotten to dislike social media, except when it comes to the book world. The world of books on social media is so fun. The bookstagrammers on Instagram are crazy cool.
Yeah.
Like I want to build an island of bookstagrammers
I
and
know.
move to it. It's so infectious. They're all always talking about these thrillers.
And it's so positive. It's like the only place of social media that's positive, I feel like. Like
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
hey, have you read this great book? And I don't even see that much of people bashing books they don't like, except for on TikTok. I've seen it on TikTok a little bit, and I don't love that. Like Christy and I have kind of a belief, like if you're gonna have a bad review, just keep it to yourself, right? Like why give a negative review? And so I love that you've noticed that, though, that it's a great place.
Oh my gosh, Instagram. I wasn't even on Instagram a year ago, and my publisher and my publisher.
I guess I'm gonna have to go on it because Cathi does our Instagram.
I do.
I do Twitter, and Twitter can get a little
See,
bit
I don't like
go down
Twitter
a
as
hole
much.
sometimes.
Yeah, that's not my jam.
Twitter has not been my jam lately either. I
Mm.
have not really enjoyed it. Facebook is kind of my main thing, but Instagram is, because Facebook can get pretty toxic too.
Yeah.
And but just
Mhm.
talking about books and what have you read and reading reviews, it's so much fun. So
Isn't that that's so great?
yeah,
That's,
so that's
yeah.
been great because that's keeping me on social media. I almost only want to do that now. I mean,
yeah.
I'm a judge, so I can't talk about public policy questions even if I wanted to.
Right.
I can't tell you what I think of the Supreme Court overturning the Dobbs decision. I mean, both because I'm a judge and because I'm an author, and I probably shouldn't polarize people. So
Mhm.
I kind of have to keep my mouth shut about all that stuff anyways. And it's hard to watch other people talk about those things and not be able to comment. So it's frustrating, but the book world has just
Yes.
brought sunlight into a dark world.
Oh, you know what? That's a great place to end because you started so positively, like what joy you bring to your writing career, and it's just a great place for us to wrap up.
I don't think he's grumpy at all.
No, I don't either. I think you're wrong.
Right, exactly. The wine helped.
The wine helped.
I'm very
Yeah. Well, that's really all. We could talk all
I know,
night.
this has been
We're
great.
probably
I
gonna
know.
corner you at
We'll see you
BoucherCon,
at BoucherCon.
but in the meantime, I guess let's say cheers to
Cheers.
Look Closer and
You
David
guys
Ellis.
are great, and definitely look me up at BoucherCon. I would love to see you there.
Yeah,
Love
we will.
Thanks. Thank
you, guys.
you.